G'day, how are ya? Did you hear that Canon recently released the M50 MkII? The follow-up to the really popular Canon M50 MkI? Well, there's a difference of 2 years between them, but apart from the time that's passed, what else has changed? I guess the question I really want to broach here is, if you've got the M50 MkI, is there any point in upgrading to the M50 MkII? I'm just going to put you out of your misery right now and say absolutely not. There's absolutely no way there's any value in upgrading from the M50 MkI to the M50 MkII. Let's find out why. Okay, both the Canon M50 MkI and the M50 MkII are interchangeable lens mirrorless bodies from Canon's M series, and there's quite a few cameras in the range and also quite a few lenses, and also a mixed sprinkling of third-party lenses thrown in. It's a really cool system because it's so compact, but it still gives you that APS-C size sensor that you'll find in some of Canon's more bulkier and also pricier DSLR models. In fact, the M50 MkI has got a 24 megapixel APS-C size sensor, and between that and the M50 MkII, nothing has changed. The M50 MkII is exactly the same body. It's exactly the same size. It's 1% lighter. Hey, there's a change. But apart from that, everything else mainly is the same. The shutter speed is still the same, which for the M50 is lightning fast. I mean, check this out. Let's jump into some of the specs, right? So Canon EFM mount lens, 24 megapixel as we said, 4K 24p, in both the M50 and the M50 II. The M50 has got a crop, I'm not sure about the M50 II, probably, I'd say so. Swivel touchscreen, 10 frames per second in the high speed shutter. Now, here's a bit of a change. The M50 MkI is capable of taking 235 shots on a single battery charge, whereas the M50 MkII claims 305 shots. That's quite a few extra shots, but big deal, man. The batteries are so small and ridiculous anyway. Just carry a whole heap in your pocket. Whether it's 230 shots or 300, big deal. That's not worth upgrading from the M50 MkI to the M50 MkII just for that. There's no improvement in terms of the durability or the weather sealing. It's exactly the same. There are no fundamental changes between the M50 MkI and the M50 MkII. As we mentioned, they both share the same sensor, the same resolution. We're looking at 2 years and 7 months of a technical advancement between the M50 MkI and the M50 MkII. So you're likely to get a faster, more intelligent camera. And hopefully that's the case when it comes to things like the autofocus modes, maybe face detect, eye detect, those sort of modes. You're going to hope to see advancements in those areas. But hey, that is not a reason to upgrade from the M50 MkI to the M50 MkII. We know that both cameras have got the articulating screen. We know they both have intervalometers built in. We know they both have connectivity capability. The M50 MkI has the same Wi-Fi connectivity capability as most of Canon's DSLR. Wow, there's a cool bird that's just landed on the tree, right out the window, right over there. I wonder if I can, it's flown away. And I want to jump onto this review here where it comes up to the review summary. It says, so what is the bottom line? Is there a clear favorite between the Canon M50 and the Canon M50 MkII? Which camera is better? So reasons to prefer the Canon M50 MkI. Well, it's pretty much got all the same specs, only it's more heavily discounted than the MkII. It's an older model, so it's going to be a cheaper model. You're going to be able to pick it up cheaper now that the MkII's come out. It's just inevitable. It's the way it goes. Advantages of the Canon EOS M50 MkII over the MkI, less disturbing. It has a 100% electronic shutter inside the body, so you can take shots without any sound at all. But you know, I find that the cripple hammer is really cropped in on the benefit of the silent shutter, particularly on the EOS R, which I'm recording with now. You can't use it with a speed light, you can't use flicker detection with it, you can't use a variety of shooting modes, and so it makes it a little bit impractical to use. Like in the situations I want to use silent shutter, generally indoors with LED or incandescent lighting, I also need flicker detect. So you can't use one or the other. I also may need to use speed lights to be in low light, so I can't use one or the other. I don't see that as a benefit to upgrade. Wow, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. It is longer lasting. You do get more shots out of the M50 MkII than you do get out of the M50 MkI. And that could be important, but really, I don't think it is. I think they could have focused more on giving bigger battery size and actually knocking that right out of the park and doubling the shot number. You know, not just adding 70 shots on top. Sometimes I might be able to get 305 out of the M50 MkI. Who knows? They're all different. There's so many variables on that sort of thing. it's more affordable. So the M50 Mark II is being touted as more affordable. I'm not sure that's the case. They're still both expensive cameras in today's world, modern world of cameras, and particularly with that sort of image quality, you can get an APS-C size sensor and a much cheaper camera than the M50. It's just that you've got the form factor, the style, the slightly larger size, the built-in flash, the electronic viewfinder. All of those things contribute to making the M50 and the M50 Mark II in that next level of price range. Okay, and lastly, the M50 Mark II is more modern. Yeah, sure, it's got 2 years and 7 months more technical advancement and progression in it, but really, it's just the M50. It's just the M50. I mean, they've been releasing their cameras all the way along the line. They've been making new M50s all throughout the last 2 years, so why did they suddenly decide to make this one and call it a Mark II when it's basically the same camera? So pretty much the bottom line out of all of this is there's no material difference largely between the M50 Mark I and the M50 Mark II. The biggest disappointment for me is the fact that it's got the 4K video in the M50 Mark II, but it still has the real heavy 1.5 times crop. So the least they could have done is remove that crop. They've done it in the 90D. Why not have put it in the M50 Mark II as well? Why wouldn't they just do that? Come on! Okay, so in summary, if you've got the M50 Mark I, there's no reason for you to upgrade to the M50 Mark II. But if you don't have the M50 Mark I, and you've got a little bit of extra coin that you want to spend onto the latest and the greatest in the compact interchangeable lens mirrorless camera range, then the M50 Mark II is probably the way to go. It's newer, it's better, it could be faster, lasts longer. You like to have better technical support and upgrades and also future proofing. But hey, the bottom line is the M system is a little bit up in the air as it is. If it was me, I wouldn't really be launching into it necessarily right now. I'd be looking for some good deals on the M50 Mark I and grabbing those. The M50 Mark I is a terrific camera. It really, really is. I mean, how good is that? No need to upgrade, no need to upgrade. That's it. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.